Neil Carlson here with Vernon Keel, the former head of the journalism department at the University of North Dakota, who has a novel about the worst murder case in North Dakota history. Thanks for joining me.
My pleasure, Neil. Thank you.
Now, the name of your book is The Murdered Family. It kind of runs parallel to the worst murder case in North Dakota history. 8 people murdered at a farmstead near Turtle Lake, North Dakota in April of 1920. For those of you who don't know where Turtle Lake is, it's about 48 miles north of Bismarck. First, Vern, to set this up for folks, can you give a description of what happened that day in April?
Yeah, it was Thursday, late in the morning, Thursday, April 22nd, and late in the morning somebody came onto the farm home of Jacob Wolf and murdered him and his wife Beata, 5 of their 6 daughters, and a hired boy, Jacob Hofer, and the only survivor was the 8-month-old baby Emma, who I grew up knowing as a friend of my mother's and mother of some kids that I knew growing up in Turtle Lake. And about 3 weeks after the murders, exactly 3 weeks after to the day, a neighbor farmer, Henry Lair, signed a confession to all 8 murders.
Now, there was some discussion that may have been a forced confession because politicians, there was an election coming up and they wanted a resolution to this quickly.
Well, yeah, that's true, Neil. As a matter of fact, the nominating conventions for the 3 parties, and there was the Democrat, Republican, also the nonpartisan league at that time, they were coming up in 3 weeks. And Bill Langer, who was the Attorney General, which would make him the chief law enforcement officer in the state, he was running for the Republican nomination for governor. So he really wanted to get this thing solved and get it solved quickly. And one of the things that he told the chief of police in Bismarck, who, by the way, he was able to get to help him with this investigation. He told him that the only way to get a quick confession, the only way to get a quick conviction is to get a quick confession. And Henry Lair said that he was beaten and forced to sign the confession, and that's the reason that he signed it. But from the beginning, he denied his guilt and said that the confession really was beaten out of him, so to speak.
And what happened to him? Did he end up dying in prison, or?
Yeah, he was sentenced to life in prison. As a matter of fact, he after he signed the confession, he refused the right to counsel, and he refused a jury trial. And what he said afterwards about that was that the investigators who were interrogating him told him that there was an angry lynch mob outside, and the safest place for him until this thing died down would be in the state penitentiary, where he could file for a change of plea in a jury trial, which he never got.
Okay, so you've written a novel about all this. How does that work? How is it structured?
Well, it's actually, I wrote it as historical fiction, and that's a question I'm often asked. You know, my background is in law, and I've done a lot of legal research, and I've done a lot of historical research, and people ask me, why didn't I do this as nonfiction? And one of the answers was because I think the main reason was that I felt that by writing it with fiction, I could fill in some of the blanks, and I could bring some life to the characters, and it you know, I knew the victims, the children at least, only as names on grave markers in the local cemetery, and I thought by writing it as fiction, I would be able to try to bring these characters back to life, so to speak, a bit about what life really was like.
It's an interesting story. If folks want to read your book, The Murdered Family, how do they get a hold of it?
It's available online through the various booksellers. It's available in bookstores in North Dakota, I'm sure, and that's pretty much where you can find it. And yeah, that's it.
Okay, all right. Thanks for talking to me today.
My pleasure, Neil, and good luck.